Hello and welcome to Nightfall. I'm your Photoson and I'll be guiding you through this little AI generated story. In the previous chapter, the Nightmare King had our heroes in some kind of underground place and brought Spike up to his base, basically. And we had to kind of cut it off before it started getting too long, but we're going to just pick right back up where we left off. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Spike followed the Nightmare King up into his throne room, with the king's skeleton following him close behind. The room was expansive and full of the Nightmare Knight's subjects, people he'd converted.
What is this place?
Spike asked.
The kingdom of the dead.
The Nightmare King said.
What?
It used to be a monastery of some sort, but it belongs to me now.
Why did you bring me here?
To show you what you could have instead.
The Nightmare King held up the elements of power.
I could offer you these powers so great, you'll be able to conquer the world with the shake of your little sword. You could have magical powers beyond imagination. Immortality and boundless energy to live forever, Spike. Why not take the easy route? Does it get any better than this?
I want to rule the world.
Then what would you do with the power?
Spike felt nothing but disgust for the Nightmare King at this moment.
I'd use it to destroy you.
Spike said, spitting out the words with malice. The Nightmare King laughed.
So be it.
The king said.
Go, Spike.
What?
Spike said, preparing for battle once more. Several Nightmare Knights approached the little dragon, when suddenly a voice rang out in the hall.
I know you're out there, in the shadow. Come on out, so I can send you back to where you came from.
The Nightmare King turned, walking along the halls towards the speaker.
Fluttershy,
He said. Spike looked at the other Nightmare Knights.
I guess this is your chance to escape.
Spike said, preparing to follow the Nightmare King. Before the other Nightmare Knights could respond, there was a flurry of activity as several small birds appeared, flying down from the rafters. The Nightmare Knights recoiled in horror as they saw the birds, and attempted to run away.
They can hurt me.
One of the birds said, before casting a spell that caused all the Nightmare Knights to become incapable of movement.
Bird brains can't even fly.
The Bluebird called down.
you're sending your troops at a powerless enemy.
The Nightmare King said, looking up at the birds.
Just one thing, work together, you're bound to fail.
The birds all bristled at this, before the Nightmare King continued.
You do well remember that.
The birds all cast some sort of beam of light at the Nightmare Knights. The beam easily ran along the floors and walls, and when it hit the Nightmare Knights, they disappeared in a puff of smoke.
You're not very good at all.
The bird said.
You are not very smart either. If you didn't notice, still free.
Spike said.
What are you going to do, little dragon?
The Nightmare King asked.
You're a single target that's visible from space. I could kill you right now.
You could try.
Try what?
Spike exhaled before charging up his little sword with red energy.
Eat this.
He said, firing the beam straight at the Nightmare King. He easily blocked the beam with his left hand before charging up his right hand as well.
Can hurt me.
He said,
But I can't.
cried Fluttershy as she burst into the room with a gust of wind. She hit the Nightmare King with a shock of lightning, but he barely glanced at her with a nod.
You're going to have to do better than that little one.
He said.
But first, I think you should have a chat with your buddy, Shrek.
The Nightmare King snapped his fingers, and from the shadows stepped a large ogre. His eyes were glazed over, and Fluttershy gasped when she realized he'd been charmed by the Nightmare King.
Shrek, what are you doing here?
She asked.
No!
Shrek said.
Then you'll accept my help for this task, correct?
The Nightmare King asked.
I guess so. Good, now prepare to die.
The Nightmare King raised his hand, and Spike prepared to fire once more.
No, Spike. Wait.
Fluttershy said.
Can't you talk to him or something? He could be alright if you smooth things over.
He'd still be under a charm. And he'd still have to do what the king wants. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
Fine then.
She cried.
I'll go talk to him.
Fluttershy turned and hurried away towards Shrek, who shook his head.
What's she doing?
The Nightmare King asked.
Making the most of her resources.
The Nightmare King frowned before raising his hand.
I could easily kill you as your turn to leave, but I'll make this simple. Come out here.
Twilight popped out of the shadows, her eyes looking straight ahead.
You can't threaten me like that. You don't know me.
She said.
I know you better than you know yourself, come to think of it. I always knew better than you wanted anyone to know. You were a follower and always were even in equestrian under the alias of Nightmare Bone. You were still following the path I forged you in your first years.
That's not true. I broke free of you.
So much pretense being a follower, trying to make herself feel better. I've seen it time and time again, and it's always the same. You desperately want to be free of the shadow you see yourself as being, but you can't. You'll never be able to. That is your weakness, and that is your power, and it's a power I can easily take advantage of. Bring out the creatures you abducted, and you can have your revenge. I'll give you one chance. The shadows that were entrapped will be set free. And you can tag me and your companions as we leave, but anything less than that, and you'll never see your friends again. Understood? Come out now and face me as an equal.
Yeah, I understand.
Twilight said, a bit of fear in her voice.
Just let my friends go and I'll come out. but don't try anything funny.
The Nightmare King cackled before raising a hand.
Bring out the beast, let none escape. Perfect example of the failed attempt to stop us. Then the princess will come out and her friends will join her as well. After that, the real fun can begin. The castle's playing pugs landed tonight. I say we go and join them.
The Nightmare King began to float off the ground, cackling.
Come on, Spiky, let's go and take the stage.
Spike followed after him, shaking his head slowly.
He's too powerful.
He said.
Yeah.
Twilight said, taking a deep breath.
We've done what we came to do, but I guess we're still on the Nightmare King's side.
It appears so.
Spike said. The blue bird landed on Twilight's shoulder and began whispering in her ear.
What?
She asked.
Can you communicate without speaking?
The bird twitched its head and rolled its eyes.
You're a lot more idiotic than I thought you were.
Twilight frowned before grabbing a black bow from one of the carts.
Why don't you just speak for yourself?
She asked, aiming an arrow at Shrek.
I just did.
The bird said. The bird flapped its wings, and a glowing sword appeared in its mouth, which it brandished.
What the? Is that a sword?
Spike asked.
It's a flaming sword.
The bird said.
It's one of the many weapons I've stolen from this world.
While this was going on, Fluttershy attempted to use her ghost companion to break Shrek's charm.
Invisible, unglowing.
She cried.
Unclean spirits are not amused by your pranks. You will pay for them.
Shrek winced.
Stop the chase.
Shrek stepped back, and the spell was broken,
Thanks.
he said to Fluttershy.
You're welcome.
Fluttershy looked around.
So, what do we do now?
There was a brief silence,
We run.
suggested the bird.
We could try fighting.
Said Spike.
I dunno.
Said Twilight. Just as they were about to run, a bright light appeared in the distance. It drew nearer, until it became clear what it was.
A ship?
Cried Spike. It looked like a large barrier of water, whipped into place and hovering through the air. It hovered outside the cave before pausing. Then it lowered a ladder, which lowered down to the ground.
Oh, laddies!
Cried Spongebob as he descended down the ladder. Falling behind him were Applejack and Pinkie Pie.
What took you guys so long?
Asked Twilight.
We ran into some ponies who wanted to help us,
Applejack explained.
but they turned out to be unfriendly.
Pinkie Pie frowned.
I thought you said they were nice.
They were at first,
Said Applejack.
but they kept asking me about the elements of destiny. What?
Demanded Spike.
Why? I don't know. They wouldn't say why. Only that it was important that they helped you guys.
An awkward silence fell over the group.
Well, we can't stay here.
Said Twilight.
The Nightmare King will find us again. We gotta find somewhere safe to go. The Nightmare King will hunt you down.
Protested Fluttershy.
You can't run away from your problems. You have to face them head on like I did.
I think we need to find someplace else to go.
Said Spike.
Some sort of community.
No, it's time we stood our ground and fought.
Said Mordecai, coming up the stairs. Twilight's other friends were following him.
We can run away. We have to at least attempt to fight, even if we don't have a chance.
We can try.
Said Spike quietly.
So, what are you guys doing here? Exactly!
Asked Pinkie Pie.
Did the Nightmare King send you on a personal mission to hunt us down?
He gave me direct orders to hunt you down.
Said Spike.
He wants you 6 dead.
Wait a minute, Spike.
Said Fluttershy.
Why would the Nightmare King want us dead? There's no real reason other than he hates us. Perhaps he's insecure about losing his status as our enemy and wants to take it back by killing us.
Fools!
The Nightmare King interjected.
I don't want to just take back what I lost. I want to take everything. I want the elements of destiny. I want that miserable life you lead. I want your friends. I want your lives, everything.
He took a deep breath before continuing.
I want what you have, not what you're born to lead. You think you can be better than me. You think you deserve better than me. See you try.
The Nightmare King raised a clawed hand and slashed it across the table, cutting deep gouges into its surface.
I didn't earn my place. I did build this kingdom. I'm not the rightful successor of the throne. I'm not the Nightmare King, and you know you're not him either, but you're trying. Respect that. And that is something the Nightmare King respects in you.
He paused before shrugging his shoulders.
I'll give you one last chance to prove to me that you're not him. One last chance to earn your way out of this grave and into life. I know. It's a lot to ask, but your Equestrian's only chance, and you handle the burden. Won't be easy.
After a pause, Spike nodded.
I can handle the burden.
Perfect.
Cried the Nightmare King.
You're hard now. I'll give you a few minutes to collect your things. When you're finished, meet me in the throne room. You'll find me there right now. Be there by midnight if you're not. You'll join your friends in this grave now. I have duties to attend to. If you're your friends in this grave, you'll friends in grave.
He turned and marched out of the room. The collected group all looked at each other.
So, what should we do?
Asked Rainbow Dash.
I guess we escaped.
Said Angel Dust.
Yeah, hurry, Doctrine.
Added Applejack.
We don't have much choice but to try to escape.
Said Fluttershy.
I can't celebrate my graduation when I know several of my friends are dead.
Don't worry, Fluttershy. We'll make sure you graduate.
Said Spike.
Excuse me.
Replied Fluttershy.
I'll be your stunt pony.
Said Spike.
I'll help you escape.
Fluttershy's jaw dropped open.
You would really do that?
I'll do more than that.
He nodded.
I'll make sure you graduate. I'll make sure you leave here. I'll make sure you're safe.
Fluttershy began to cry again as Spike wrapped an arm around her.
That's really sweet of you, but how?
She asked.
What can one little dragon do?
Spike's eyes lit up.
Don't worry about it. I'll think of something.
With that, Spike was dismissed. And so, like with last time, I decided to cut it off there just because I feel like, again, it was about to go into something longer. So we'll pick up where we left off one more time in the next chapter and kind of wrap things up, I think, because things are kind of coming to a head here. So I hope you all will join me for the season finale, I think, of Nightfall, and I'll see you all then. If you haven't seen the previous episode, here's a clip of what you missed.
Spike, what happened to you?
Mordecai asks.
The Goatman, who then forced me to play a song on my banjo. That was the first time I'd ever played in front of anyone, and I got scared. The Goatman made me play it again and again and again. I passed out.
That's awful.